Okay, over to you, Caroline, board chair extraordinaire. Take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time today to join us. Really important work that Food First is doing, and I'm glad that you're here for the discussions. Hopefully you can stay for the discussions later on. So thanks, Josh, for the introduction. In my non-chair life with Food First, I'm the CEO of Smart Ice, so a fellow social enterprise of Josh's, and happy to be chair. So welcome to the other board members on the call as well. I'm really pleased with what the organization has done last year, and Josh and team has done a really great job of pulling together in the yearly report. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, please do go in and have a look, because it's really outlining all the great work that everybody did. And kudos to Danica for putting together such a pretty report as well. So it's really well laid out and nice to read. The team this year has really effectively stepped up and has masterfully been able to handle anything that has been thrown at them. And it's been a lot. It's not just the regular day-to-day business, but it's the new day-to-day business that's been added and the other things that people are throwing at them. So I'm honored to say that Food First has stepped up and is walking the walk, and is actually, people know this, right? So which is why the phone is ringing all the time for Josh and team. And I think that they've proven themselves in the ecosystem as people in the know and getting stuff done. So congratulations to the entire team for that. The social enterprise piece is something that was identified, I know when Josh came on, but also when I came on as a board member, as well as a skill set that I have to bring to that table. So really, really pleased with how everything happened this year with the inaugural food hub, and looking forward to see the potential of that and where it can go in the future, and about the social impacts that it can bring to community, to constituents in the community, and to the farmers, it's a really interesting model. I think it was good, lots of lessons learned, and look forward to the next sort of 2.0 version of that next year, which I think is going to be great. So, everybody on this team has become a leader within the organization and has been really involved in all kinds of policy and process, and really refining how the organization communicates, how the finances are played, how we talk with stakeholders in the community. And so this is evolving. And with the changes that's happened over the last almost 2 years, that evolution has really, I think, again, taken us to a new level with Food First. This year coming, the board is going to be working and looking at a new framework. So what everybody talks about today, and that question that's going to be posed to you, we're going to take that back as a board and work through, where do we want to be in the future? What do we want to look like? And we're going to take all that information that you talk about and share as guidance for the board, as well as staff input, of course. And we're going to look at the ecosystem and the stakeholders from there. So we're excited about that. The other exciting piece is that we did have a full board. So we did new recruitment this year, but we have a few members that have moved on, timed out, gotten other jobs, etc. So we are actually going to be recruiting for 3 new board members. So I do believe we're going out to public for that. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. We're looking to make sure that we have diversity and inclusion within our board, and that we have a really great cross-section of people from the province, and any kind of the diversity and inclusion points along the way. I would be remiss if I did not say a big heartfelt thank you to Tom Cooper. So Dr. Cooper was he was the past chair. So I was vice chair when he came in, and I'm really glad he brought me into this organization. It was a really heartwarming, good feeling, about Food First, and I'm really glad that I'm here to chair and to share the governance with my fellow board members. So Tom, if you're out there and you hear this, if you're not on the call right now, we really appreciate all of the work that you've done over the last 6 years. and what you will continue to bring to the organization. And Tom is going to help us with the strategic planning in January. He's an expert in that, and I know that he's a big advocate for us, so he's not that far away from us, which is great. We know his number, we know where he lives. So in closing, we're just at the beginning of new things happening, and really pleased that the organization is really skilled at rolling with it. And I think, and I feel, I should say, that skill of rolling with it and thinking on your feet and being proactive and inclusive is something that Josh and the entire team have. And that's why we've been able to do what we've done. And that's why in community we're known. And keep up the great work. And I really, again, appreciate everybody taking the time to spend this next hour or so with us. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Thanks for the kind words. And we always appreciate so much wise counsel from the board on these things. I think the whole staff is looking forward to a year of strategic renewal as well. It's been a while. The world has changed. We've changed. It is time. So like Caroline said, one of the things we'll be doing with the conversation here today is taking a little gut check that'll help shape some of the directions for that process. And I think we're looking forward to that. Over the next few minutes, I do want to take a little walk through some highlights from our annual report. At the end of the deck here, at the end of the meeting, I'll share the actual link to the report so that you can all see it. And Ashton can maybe put it in the chat as well. It's not very complicated. It's annualreport.foodfirstnl.ca. But I do want to walk through some of the themes that stood out to us over the 2021 year in our work, give folks a sense of what we're doing, because I think one of the things that you'll notice maybe as someone on this call is that your point of connection to Food First might be one thing, but there are many points of connection and there are many sort of areas that we're doing work in. And so this, one of the things we like to do is have a chance to share the breadth of that work. Oh, thanks to Nika and Ashton on the chat there. We like to share the breadth of that work a little bit and where things have landed. So I'll just take a few minutes and walk through some of those themes. The first one, and Caroline referred to this, I think it is important to remember that we are not in by any means anything resembling normal times right now. 2021 for us was still dominated in many ways by responding to the food security impacts of the pandemic. The sort of building blocks for this were laid down in 2020, but in 2021, a lot of this work got refined. And so the role we've been playing, as many of the folks on this call know, we do coordination and information sharing. So our staff have been on the phone and on email to food programs around the province, maintaining a database of who is doing what. We have been providing resources to partners. One of the roles we've often played is accessing larger funding pots, breaking them up, spreading them out to folks who could use a bit of resources. And so by now, through the pandemic, we've moved probably just over $900,000 out directly to community partners for some of this work, and trying to do that in a way that enables some creative approaches to food supports and to food programming. We've also been filling gaps directly ourselves. The food helpline grew out of that database. It was originally just kind of a phone front end for that database, but we did realize how many folks are being left behind by the current system of food supports. And so one of the things that line has been doing is distributing some resources that we've been able to access for folks who do fall through those cracks. And that's been a very important thing over the last year for sure. And in that, trying to model some new approaches. So within the food helpline, trying to model a low barrier approach to accessing food, something that's deeply stigmatized for many people. And I think we've had some success there. So just to give people a clear sense of what that helpline is doing, we are doing service navigation. So you can call and we'll help point your way to supports. But most of that by now has actually been handed off. One of the things that's changed over the last year is that this province gained a 211 line operated through the United Way. And we have been able to hand off most of the service navigation work to the team at 211. They have a 24/7 call center. They're able to direct people to programs pretty effectively by now using the database that we assembled. So we're integrating behind the scenes pretty directly. We're merging our databases and our online access points to those databases. And so that's really meant that the helpline team has been focused primarily on that gap filling, on working with folks who have no other support available, who are often directed to us through 211, but also directly through the line. I think anyone who's been paying attention to media recently knows that there's really been an ever-growing demand, and it is decoupled, I think, by now from the impacts of the pandemic to a large extent. There's some good research this year that showed that even during the height of the pandemic, less than 1 in 10 food insecure households ever reached out to a food program for help. And I think one thing we're seeing is that number might be creeping upwards. More folks are accessing these services as the barriers to access drop, but that is causing its own set of challenges. And so our real hope is that this can be a spur to broader systems change, right? Like we cannot begin to solve food insecurity through a community food helpline, but what we can do is model some different ways of doing things and help expose the level of systems change that's really needed to shift this. And I'm really proud of what the helpline team has done in that regard. We'll also jump over to a whole other area of work now. Carol Ann referred to this. That for the first time this year, Food First's bank account has earned revenue in it from a business. We took a jump into social enterprise this year, which was really exciting for us. It was something that we've been discussing as a team for quite some time. And by and large, I think this year was just the time that the stars aligned. We were able to pull some resources in. We found a partner in the Cape Breton Food Hub, whose ideas we have almost entirely borrowed, and who have worked really closely with us getting them established. So we started the Western Food Hub in and around Corner Brook this year. It was a project to connect consumers to local producers. It was an online front end that allowed shoppers to order up products from as many local producers as were in the system. And then our team would go out, get those products in bulk, pack them in orders, and have them ready for pickup at the food hub. And so I didn't have a downtown Corner Brook storefront on our bingo card for 2021, but that's where we were. And it was actually kind of fun. It was really a treat to have that kind of presence and to be out there in the community running this project. The other side of this project was that we used it as a labor market integration opportunity. So we partnered with Choices for Youth to staff the food hub itself as a labor market integration program for young people in Corner Brook, and that was really successful. We've also been doing outside of the food hub, we've been trying to get engaged more in the social innovation and social enterprise space. We have been doing network building as part of the social innovation and enterprise network of NL, a newly formed organization. And we're trying to bring more attention in general to the number of opportunities there are for social innovation and social enterprise in food. So speaking to audiences in, for example, the community development and business community, reminding them that when they have someone knocking on the door, thinking about starting a social enterprise, that there are some really important gaps in our food systems that we do think are pretty good candidates for social enterprise activity. And we're seeing a lot of that pop up. And I think that's really exciting and something that we'll see more of going into the future. Jumping back across to the other side of the island of Newfoundland, this was also a very big year for the St. John's food assessment. There's probably a number of people on the call who were engaged in that in some way. We had a team of food animators on the ground gathering data and understandings and hosting activities, organizing action around food systems in St. John's. We heard from more than 800 people in an online survey, which is a lot for town here. Had many focus groups, panel discussions, fed into many policy processes, launched a snapshot of local food system issues and strengths, and we took action. So we supported those food animators to run their own food initiatives. We organized a food systems Kickstarter competition, which had folks pitching their ideas for food-based social enterprises and winning some supports to get those implemented. And now we're moving into the next phase of taking action, the phase 3 of this food assessment, which really is about taking the ideas that we've learned about the food system in St. John's and moving them towards implementation. And sometimes those might be Food First NL projects, and sometimes those will be projects that a partner can take on, but we can help germinate. So we're really, I think, excited about this. This is the first time we've done a food assessment at this scale. If anyone on the call was involved, you might remember we did food assessments in places like Hopedale and Rigolette, and on the south coast of the island as well. But doing it in an urban setting was really an exciting and different project, and we're really happy with it. I anticipated myself, but here's our storefront in Corner Brook. And I guess the only other thing to add on the Western NL Food Hub is that we really do think it has a promising future. We were fully subscribed. We had as many customers as we could handle for our fridge and freezer and space capacities here. We are looking forward to trying an expanded version of this in the next season, and potentially as the future moves, expanding into other areas. We find this model has a lot of good to it for areas where physical access to local production is really limited, and that covers quite a bit of this province for one reason or another. And we had a really good experience setting this up as a labor market entry program. We're really happy about how that went. So stay tuned on the Food Hub, because we think there's a lot of potential to those ideas to boost those connections. Looking inward for a minute, this was also a year of consolidating some pretty big changes in how we run our team. And we shared a little bit about this on our blog over the last year, but Food First has been taking a fairly structured approach to thinking about equity and what equity means within our team. And so once a month, we have an equity learning session. Suzanne, who introduced herself at the beginning of the call, has been leading a lot of that work to really challenge our team around some of the core questions about what we're doing and how the organization fits in and what are the issues we're tackling. One of the earliest places that was put to practical use was in rethinking our approach to HR. So over the last while, we've done a number of things. We've become a living wage employer, pegging our wages at the bottom end to the living wage for St. John's. That's the only local one we have. We've set a maximum ratio between the lowest and highest wages. We put fixed salary bands in place that are transparent. All these kind of things to try and equalize and add some equity internally. And it's been, I think, really a positive thing for the team. And we've learned a lot from our mentors. And particularly, I want to shout out Food Share in Toronto, who have been very public about similarly HR journey that they've been on, and have been very generous with their time and their thinking around how we rebuild our team in a different way. And we're really happy with how that's going. The other thing that's happened, I'm sure this is true for everyone on this call, or many of us, is that our team is more regionalized now. And one impact from the pandemic was that we are in many more ways a truly provincial organization who doesn't draw a line between staff who are in St. John's or not. And I think that bodes very well for the future. And that's a direction we really want to keep pushing on, and adding people around the province who have a really strong knowledge of their local context as part of their work with Food First, even if they're not working on a locally specific project. And so that's definitely a direction for the future here. Even in this pandemic year, we were also pretty busy, got out in the world a little bit, even got back in person. This is a photo from a meeting, food systems roundtable we had in Corner Brook. Did a ton of presentations online and in person, did a lot of media. I think one of our priorities is trying to shape the narrative about how people think about food security and insecurity in this province, and push folks to think a little bit more about the systemic solutions and challenges we're facing. And we felt pretty good about where we landed with that this year. The other side, of course, to that outreach work is supporting grassroots food programs all over this province. Our phone rings every day with a request for support or resources or connections to help a new project get going or an existing project get stronger. Over 100 in the last year. we call it the phone call of the day here in the office, and it might be something about how to start a community garden, or it might be a question of how to advocate for better policy in your community. And we put a lot of time and a lot of heart into supporting those requests, into supporting that network. We have toolkits and resources online that we've been working on, but also just the sort of brain power of our staff team goes into this a lot, and we're really always super happy to see new programs start and existing programs strengthen from this work. One specific thing I wanted to highlight here as well is our work thinking about shifting narratives in policy. We co-chair the St. John's Food Policy Council with the City of St. John's, and it's really been a busy year building up new partnerships with other organizations and other stakeholders around food questions. There was a ton of engagement around the municipal election. There's a new healthy cities strategy being brought in here in St. John's, where I'm based, that we think has a lot of potential to impact food security in this community. And so the St. John's Food Policy Council has been a really vital part of that work. The other part of the work that we're really excited about this year, and that we've been talking for some time, I think, about how much potential it has for really large scale systems change, is institutional food. So our healthcare systems, our school systems, all of those systems have huge footprints in food. And using their powers for good is a really challenging thing sometimes. There are a lot of barriers to things like local procurement or integration of food into broader ranges of programming. But we've been working, I think, very steadily along with a number of players, particularly with a couple of the health authorities, around framing out just how much benefit there is on both ends to action on institutional food, to people who are, say, patients, students, customers of the institutions, and to the producers who can be more engaged with this. And this year we launched a pilot collaborative in Labrador called it's called the Anchor Collaborative. There's a cohort of a bunch of organizations paired with health authorities from across the country who are part of this, and ours is one of them. And we're working with the 3 Indigenous communities in Labrador to work out how the health system can be leveraged for better traditional food access. And I think that's something that's really interesting for us to figure out how we can support that work as an organization, to hear how Indigenous communities in Labrador are framing the issue of access to food, and figuring out how to leverage the huge footprint of the healthcare system to strengthen those systems themselves. And LG Health is contributing staffing support to that project, and I think you'll hear quite a lot from that in the coming year. We just got back from an initial retreat in Goose Bay that's added a lot of coherence and context to that project, and we're really excited about it. Almost done with our update, but I did want to flag the other big theme this year, which was coalition building. We've spent a lot of time building bridges, both with other food systems organizations, but also with other organizations who have food systems connections but might not have food in their mandate. And that really, I think, recognizes just how many people play that role in the food system. So we've been a part of the Coalition for a Just Recovery, and that moved into forming a coalition around basic income, which we've seen a lot of movement on. It has definitely moved from something that a few years ago was a pretty wild idea to a legitimate policy option. And that's something that we see a lot of potential in from a food security perspective. We're also working to build out a bit more of a regional network with our Atlantic Canadian peers. So there's a lot of organizations like us that we don't talk to enough, and that's changing, and it's changing in a really interesting way. I think, again, as we look into 2022, that's something we'll see. So, good segue to my last comment here, which is just that, what do we see coming out of this year and heading into next? We see a policy window that is pretty wide open in some pretty interesting ways. So early in 2022, the Health Accord will drop. And we know already that the Health Accord is going to have some dramatic things to say about the need to address social determinants of health, food insecurity and poverty, primary among those. And I think that's going to drive a lot of work, as will the upcoming renewal of the poverty reduction strategy, which is moving in the similar time frame. So I think there is a real opportunity for folks who are doing work in food to look for those systemic changes and move away from the kind of Band-Aid solutions that we've sometimes been stuck on. For us too, I think over the next year, as I mentioned, we're looking to regionalize our team and our work as much as we can. So when we hire, hopefully hire around the province as much as we can. Bring in more local knowledge on the ground from our team. We will have also a process starting soon to really envision a we are suggested. In the first half of next year, we will be launching a process to really re-envision what emergency food aid looks like. I think we've learned a lot this past couple of years about what works, what doesn't, and where it could fit or should fit in the overall social safety net. It is obviously taking far too much load right now. So we're, I think, looking forward to having that conversation with folks who are working on the ground in a range of roles. And then, as Caroline mentioned, strategic, we are heading into a time of refresh on our strategic framework. It could look quite different than the last 3 years did. I suspect that it will. So we'll be looking to folks on this call and beyond to provide some insights there. I'm going to stop there with my presentation. We have a couple minutes for questions before we move into our discussion items. So if anyone does have a question, feel free to just raise your hand, and Ashton, maybe you can unmute folks if anyone does, or you can pop a question in the chat. That's also fine. Any hands up there, Ashton? All right. That's totally fine. If questions occur, we'll have a few minutes towards the end as well. I'm going to move us then into the next part of this meeting, which would be a chance for folks to talk with each other and to talk with Food First staff a little bit. We've got just around half an hour for it.